I think I have a natural propensity to say yes to the extreme no. I think I could go back before that and that I would naturally say yes to the thing that I felt deeply was the right direction, even though it was maybe anti the norm. And I think part of that's my wiring. I'm probably more of, the type of person that wants to say yes to the things everybody would always say no to. You tell me I can't do something, like that, just clear my calendar. That's all I'm working on. Yeah, for sure, contrarian in that degree. So I think I have a natural propensity to say yes to the extreme no. And maybe that's a thing that I'm just generally drawn to. Apparently, if I try to say no, I still say yes. So I just said yes to so many of those on that trip that became just a huge norm for me, where I'm like, I'm just going to lean on the side of yes when it just seems crazy. And I wasn't right a lot. Like, you're off base. Like, that makes no sense. But I would rather take the risk to see the reward than never take the risk and guarantee I will never see any form of reward.
Austin Community Capital. This show is a celebration of the spirit of Austin, Texas, honoring our past, engaging our present, and building our future together. Although it's not the last time.
David, I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you. I know you as a guy who goes all in and who's passionate about culture and really has found your calling in a very unique way. And I'm excited to unpack that here today. So thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Well, let's start at the beginning. Let's start with, where'd you come from? And tell me about family of origin, kind of what was life like at the beginning for you?
Yeah, I bounced around a lot. Born in North Carolina, quickly moved over to Dallas, lived there for a little while, up in Chicago, then out in Seattle. Middle of high school, got routed down to Austin, which I was only there for 2 years. Couldn't get more excited to get out of Austin, mostly out of Texas. Didn't make it too far. Only went up to Waco, lived there for another 10 years. And now I'm back in Austin and maybe here for quite a while. So,
well, we're glad you came back, but let's unpack that a little bit. So what had y'all moving around? Or was it parents' jobs, or what were dynamics like?
Yeah, my dad was the first in his family to go to college, kind of actually leave Indiana. He grew up in Indiana on a farm that actually my family homesteaded back in the 1800s. And he was the first one to leave that region of Indiana, let alone join the military, go to college, go into a real profession, specifically in marketing. And so as AT&T and these other telecom companies, put themselves back together and then broke themselves apart and put themselves back together, he bounced around different places around the world. At the time, I didn't understand it. Now, looking back, I could see that based on where his roots came from, he was trying to further himself, further our family, bring a level of prosperity, maybe worth, maybe purpose that he wasn't finding just where he grew up, and sacrificed a lot to go and make that happen. And so that inevitably ended in us just constantly moving at least 2,000 miles every single time. Most people move homes and you kind of go down the road or to the other subdivision or whatever, but moving for us meant resetting over and over again.
That's intense. And fun to hear about that origin of homesteading. Did you have exposure to that and kind of those roots, or had your dad kind of already gone off his own? And
well, when we lived in Chicago for a period of time, we were only about 2 hours away from the farm. So during that season of my life, which was kind of early middle school, late elementary school, we did go over there quite often. And so I have a lot of memories being back at the farm and hanging out there, and I still go back all the time. But I didn't understand that concept of the heritage and the homesteading until later on in life. But that farm always was important to us. I mean, my extended family's all there. No one besides my father left. And so my aunts were there and uncles and cousins and all of those types of things. So it had great memories for me and the different things that we did on the farm. But no, I didn't understand kind of that fact that it had gone that far back in our family, or what the full history of it was, or how poor they were when they grew up, or why it was a big deal for my dad to leave. That was all later in life when I probably wasn't so self-absorbed.
Break down homesteading? Because that's a term that, kind of is not really used anymore and may not
Oh yeah, true.
carry a lot of meaning for folks. What is that, and what did that look like for your family?
Yeah, so I haven't gone through the full genealogy of my family and fully understand it, but as Americans moved out west, not that far west in Indiana, but as they moved out west towards Indiana back in that time, the government essentially gave each citizen a amount of land, an amount of acreage that you could quote unquote homestead, meaning you go and find a place of land that had not been claimed yet. And I don't remember how many acres it was. Maybe it was like 250 acres or something like that. And you could homestead that land, meaning make that land yours because it had not been previously claimed by any other American citizen at that time. So our family on that farm was the first family to own that as an American citizen.
Yeah, that's some wild history. What are some maybe traditions that are memorable for you about that dad's side of the family, or specific memories, or maybe even family members that left a mark on you?
Yeah, I don't know. We bounced around so often. I don't think traditions became a part of our life. I definitely have plenty of memories sitting on the farm, hanging out with my grandpa, who had died at a really young age. All of my grandparents really died at a really young age. But, I had memories from my childhood being with them and doing different things, whether it was shooting guns or playing golf or driving bulldozers around or being, allowed to drive on the farm or probably on roads and highways when I was 12 and 14 and whatever. I definitely had a lot of memories with you can do anything at any age and without much of any oversight, which is, about the opposite of today's society.
Yeah, seriously. Well, that sounds pretty awesome. My young self would have been envious of you drive around big motorized toys like dump trucks. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it was quite fun.
So let's walk through a little bit the experience of moving around and kind of what form did that take of your formative years and how you were being shaped as a young man. What was that like?
Yeah, as I get older, I have a greater appreciation for those moves. Obviously, during the time when I was growing up, and the moves were always sudden. Like my dad would come home, or at least it would feel like he came home. There was no conversation, and it was almost as if he was informing my brother and I have one brother, and my mom all at the same time. And so the expression on her face seemed to be more of, this is the first time I'm hearing this, or at least that's how I recall it. And so it was devastating each time, because it was a move 2,000 miles away. And this was pre-cell phones. This was pre-social media, instant messenger, pre-internet really being available for everybody, pre-emails being a normal thing. So when we moved, it was I'm not going to see these people again apart from some random connection or vacation that may or may not happen. And they happened at these different pivotal points in my life. Obviously, the first one at 1, I don't recall that. But when I was 8 years old, leaving those friends behind, moving to a place. And the biggest one was, a few big ones. But when I moved to Chicago, I was there all the way through, halfway through 6th grade, and then moved to Seattle. Devastating to leave those friendships behind. But what was hard for myself at that age, as somebody that had a very big ego and that probably continued to grow, was that in the Chicago area, you begin middle school at 6th grade. In Seattle area, you begin middle school, they call junior high, at 7th grade. And so I go from middle school, going from class to class, going from, this whole new level of independence, right back to elementary school when I get to Seattle. And so, looking back, I'm like, who cares? But at the time, it was just this. How could you take me from my kingpin? Yeah, how could you demote me as a human being? Like, am I not good enough to go from class to class, to have my own independence, that now I have to hop on the bus with all of these kids that are younger than me versus older than me? And so there was just a lot of those things that happened. But each place along the way, hey, look back today and be thankful for the tenacity, for the ability to quickly make new friends, find myself and my own rhythms in a new place, in a new way, And now because of it, I've got plenty of relationships from different cultures and different perspectives that I would have never had I grown up in the same place. And I'm sure there's a sweetness to growing up in the same place too, but I am appreciative for the relationships and connections that I was able to build along the way.
Yeah. Well, I imagine all that moving, it created a level of adversity that you had to overcome and kind of find yourself and find friends. How do you find friends? Like if you were to break that down for, let's say we're talking to a junior high boy or a high school boy that's your former self, what would you advise them from your own experience?
Well, I'm sure society's different today than it was back then, for sure. I don't know what the public school setting looks like today, but for me, I can always remember that first time going to school and not having a place to sit with anybody at lunch. Like everybody else had their established friends. I never had my established friends. And so I would always make it a point, go find somebody else at the lunch table that looked like they needed a friend. Just somebody sitting by themselves, staring off into space. Maybe they're uncomfortable as well. And so I always did that. And looking back, what's funny is that, I don't know if it's funny or not, that person never became my friend, it seemed. Like I can recall some of these faces in my head, and I don't ever recall developing great relationships with those initial interactions. But it was that propensity to, I'm just going to sit with the next person, and never decide that isolation was an answer. I also don't believe my wiring is that to be an isolationist. I think I had have a great need to want to be around others and to see others in relationship with me and others. And so it was always just, whether it's at the lunch table or whether it was in a classroom, how can I sit next to somebody? How can I say a joke? Does the other person laugh? Do I think the other person is funny? I was off the rails and a prankster and had my own, issues in life. And so it was around finding people that had commonality in that. Those were probably not the friends that I would choose to have nowadays, but, who can I quickly find common ground in? And then, what do our hobbies align? Do our interests align? And can we go off the races? And probably back then, my interests, as I was forced into new places over and over again and began to get this disgruntled, frustrated attitude about, getting ripped out of my life over and over again. My primary interest, I think, became more on how can I destroy authority. And so that led towards relationships of, how can we rally together to, be the force that's against the principal, that's against the teacher, that's against the goody two-shoes and whatnot. And that had to take a huge shift when from the Seattle to Austin trip. But it was always around common ground, good or bad.
Yeah, well, unity, maybe a misaligned purpose orientation, but unity nonetheless.
Yeah.
When along that friend journey do you feel like you started to find your people? Like what were some of those powerful friendships that got forged in that journey?
I didn't start having lifelong friendships until the tail end of high school. I have plenty of relationships that if I was in the area, I could call up people from, maybe early high school, late middle school, and it would be fun to go get together and reminisce on a few things. But no lifelong meaningful relationships until later in high school. And I don't think that had to do with necessarily the people I was hanging out. It really had to do with me and who I was and my own perceived view of my identity and confidence in that. And so as I matured in that place, that's when I began to have really deep, meaningful relationships.
Go a little bit deeper there. You alluded to some wild and powerful things happening inside of you. Like what was going on that opened up the space for those relationships?
Yeah. So, those moves were probably pretty traumatic for me. I don't really understand trauma that well, but I would imagine they were relatively pretty traumatic for me. And that last one from Seattle to Austin, my parents made me aware of that. The middle, kind of towards actually the beginning of my sophomore year of high school, I'm on the varsity basketball team, on the varsity golf team. I've got great friendships there. I'm a leader in different things. We're going like our school during the wintertime. Every Friday we had no class and they would just ship us up to the mountain to go snowboarding. And oftentimes I would stay there through the weekend. And so my life was amazing in Seattle. I loved it. I loved the culture. I loved snowboarding. I loved sports, all the things. And then beginning of sophomore year, my parents say, hey, we're moving to Austin. And you need to kind of pack up your stuff, say your goodbyes, and we're going.
You're in Aspen, or maybe Italy, and your phone pings with a freeze warning back in Austin. Panic? Nope. You have Loyal. We're already there, wrapping the pipes and checking the perimeter. Whether you're home or away, we are the eyes and ears of your estate. Global freedom, local support.
And after this having happened so many different times and me developing this level of independence, I was just done and literally told them I'm not going. You can go without me. I'm not coming. And that led to this back and forth fighting for a period of time that I think for them it was, whether it was wisdom or exasperation, I don't know. But it was, okay, we'll go, you can stay through the end of your sophomore year. Then you have to come down over summer. And I, agreed to that to some degree. So they left and they kind of put like, hey, this is going to be your home base, family that you're going to stay with. And it's like, thanks for letting me know. And I put my stuff there and then kind of bounced around different friends' homes that I wanted to stay with, predominantly at this one, but, I found other friends that I would go and hang out with and spend time with. So that really grew a place of independence that I think, quickly accelerated of my view on the world and perspective, and kind of got me trapped in my own thoughts and, the pressures of I'm not going to get to a place at the right time if I don't take ownership of it. Where am I going to sleep tonight? How am I going to make it to practice? Like the things that generally parents cover for their kids now all became my responsibility. And then I ended up having to go down over the summer. So I literally, in March, turned 16, had this family that I was staying with take me through the driver's test and get my driver's license. So I didn't do that with my parents. Then I didn't have a car to drive because I'm, up there by myself, and then come down in the middle of summer to Austin, start junior high. And remind me of the question.
Oh yeah, kind of getting to these really close friendships that were formed. You said we were in high school.
Yeah, and so like what
got to a place.
Yeah, what was changing, and so, I'm in this place of deep independence, deep frustration, deep hurt. Not particularly excited to be around my family anymore because it felt like they were the ones that were at the time destroying my life. And so I got into Austin, plugged in, went from a small private Christian school in Seattle. I went to probably a class of 40 people, maybe the whole school, including elementary. It was elementary, middle, and high school. The whole school probably had 400 people. Probably less, honestly. And then I go to Westlake High School here in Austin with a total, class class of over 1,000, over 4,000 total students, massive sports programs at the time. Like Nick Foles was there, and Drew Brees had been there prior. So you got this gigantic football conglomerate. I came over the summer of my junior year, didn't know about tryouts, didn't go to tryouts. So then found out I couldn't go and try out for the teams until my senior year. At that point, it was not going to be something that I would be able to participate in. So varsity everything to literally can't even participate in a sporting activity. There are no mountains around the Austin area to go snowboard in. So I'm in a pretty frustrated place.
So you're like, what the heck is going on?
Everything's upside down. Having to get a whole new friend group and whatnot again. And I quickly, as in other place that I went, developed the new friends, lots and lots and lots of friends, and kind of in all of these different pockets, all simultaneously. And that kind of, ballooned through that junior and senior year of high school because of two reasons. One, I grabbed all the same friendships of I'm a frustrated, hurt human being that wants to hurt other people. Two, I'm also getting involved in this church community that has a whole different set of people. And I've got to prepare myself for college because the last thing I'm going to do is hang around my family or in Texas. And so that I'm also around all of these prep smart individuals as well. So I've got these 3 different pockets of friends that are ballooning really quickly. But as I got more involved in the church community and got convinced to go on this mission trip to Canada that was over my birthday, and at the time it was probably just because of a girl or other people on there. It had nothing to do with the fact that I probably didn't even know why we were going to Canada. In fact, I don't think I knew why we were going there. I think I was shocked when we got there and they're like, what are we doing? We're going to go and have conversations with the homeless people and feed them and stuff. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I don't recall seeing homeless people, which is hilarious because I grew up in Seattle and then obviously here in Austin, and those cities are known for homeless people, at least today, but I don't think as much back then. But I remember while I was up there in Canada, I had a profound encounter with God and really fell in love with him, and that transformed the direction of my life and my interests. And so then when I come back, this church community was important to me. I had no desire to leave these other friendships behind, but now I'm like all in on 3 different communities. One, just kind of my natural wiring of anti-authority group, and my get ready for college group, and my church group. And I kind of just found myself as the guy that could just chameleon into each of these communities, and generally the rally leader behind all of them, but also with this actually it's not slow, nothing goes slow in my life, but this new full sold out commitment towards all I really care about is this relationship with God and figuring out how I can become a better, less hurt individual, less angry, less frustrated, more intentional, more focused, more missional oriented individual. And so, I don't know, it was just a big pot that was stirring all at the same time. And I probably got to bring some of the other people along with me in that stirring.
Well, it sounds like a wild and transformative experience in Canada. What happened that just all of a sudden you were like, I am going all in on God, and this is important to me, and this is a life priority, and this is an identity? Like, what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up around the church in my entire life, but it was never anything that was. It was something that I was pulled into, and if you had asked me at any point during that time what was my general belief statement, I'd be like, yeah, I believe that God exists. Everything coming from nothing makes no sense to me. And so I would have given you logical answers. But if you would have said, okay, well, do you love that higher being? Do you love the Lord? If you believe that Jesus existed, do you love him? Are you in a relationship with others that are not like physical humans? Like, no, and that's weird, and that's insane. And so that transformation was really more of a place of, wow, there's a real relationship here. There is in a relationship defined as a 2-way conversation that can happen. Somebody else that genuinely loves and cares for me more than I had at least perceived my parents to, because they were the ones that were, in my mind, destroying my life. And there was this other person that had been with me this entire time. And I remember different stories of certain things that had happened in my life where I'm like, wow, I feel like you've always actually been there. And so there was this, you've always been there. You've always loved me. You always want more from me. I did not feel that I was receiving that anywhere else. I must know more. What does that look like? And then just all in. And all in meaning like I went on this mission trip. That mission trip seemed to be the answer. I'm going to sign up for every single mission trip. I started a car detailing business, and among other things, primarily so I could earn money to go spend it all on plane tickets and overseas trips, to go on the next mission trip or the next thing that was happening in the church community or whatever. And it's not to say that I went from this bad person life to an imperfect person life. That was for sure not the case. I just did all in both at the same time. And so I remember like an example of this was my mom had this Cadillac, and I had this encounter. I now have this new friend that became one of my first real best friends, where I could actually open up and be transparent with him and him with me, and we could actually talk about things that felt too weird and emotional that was starting to become normal to actually say, hey, like, this is what I'm thinking, or this is what I did, or this is what I'm feeling. But he and I would meet up often after he was done working at Amy's Ice Cream, and he was the store manager or whatever, and I would go meet him there, and then we would take their sound system and just blast David Crowder music and just sing and dance and worship to our heart's content till like 2 a.m.
That would be a sight for a passerby.
Yeah, and so you're like, yeah, I mean, sure, you're sitting out there and looking into the windows, and you're like, what are these people doing past hours, running around like crazy people?
Like, must be new flavors coming out at Amy's.
Yeah. And on one end, you're like, man, what a passionate, zealous individual. But we would then close up the store, hop into my mom's Cadillac, and see how fast we could drive that thing down 183 with the windows down. There's a sky roof. He would stand outside the sky roof, kind of with arms out, crossed, like as we're going like 100 and whatever miles per hour. And I would go and sit outside the driver's side window with my rear end literally on the window seal, with myself out the window. And as we're in cruise control, just kind of hold the steering wheel. And so
Ghost riding the whip before even the turn.
This is what I mean. I was all in. I was still all in my crazy ways, but I was also all in on this full surrender, full identity reset perspective. And, slowly one was going to win out, and that kind of war carried through college. But it was, how can we, go all in on all things?
That's wild. So, curious, now you got me on the edge of my seat of like, what's next? You're in high school, you've got these kind of 3 different friend groups, you're feeling really all in on faith and this relationship with God, you're going 100 miles an hour with your buddy. Like, what's next for you, and where'd you head after that?
Yeah, I mean, college was always the direction for me. I kind of always thought that I would do something different. I mean, my dad was the first one, and so I think that was a strong value that he had instilled. But staying in Texas was like not going to happen. So throughout high school, I was here my junior year, so it was, you got to figure this out relatively quick. So I had all these schools that I was interested in the Northwest, a couple in the Midwest. I was kind of in between them. I'm like, maybe I'll go to Valpo, maybe I'll go to University of Idaho. There's a few up in Seattle I was really thinking about as well. Felt like all of my friends were going to UT A&M or Baylor. And at the time, a lot of my friend group was all going to Baylor. And so inevitably, as they would go do tours in Baylor, I would just go with them to go hang out. And I remember going to Baylor over and over again and being like, no, this school, no way, don't like this, don't like that. This is like too Christian. Like, I can't be a part of this. Like, I want to go be myself. It's in Texas still. It's hot here. There's no mountains. I can't snowboard. So it was like, I don't know how many times I visited Baylor, but it was always no. And then I got down to Valpo and Idaho University, and I was like, I don't know. I've got to pick between these two. And I was thinking about career in physics at the time. And then as I, went throughout my maybe early senior year of high school and continued to develop this relationship with the Lord and my friend group that was mostly around that, and went on additional mission trips to like Ukraine and Hungary, and just saw different levels of poverty and the need of the world that were out there that I didn't have good perspective or language for. I just became more focused on, man, I would rather not pursue a career in science and physics or things like this, but I want to just figure out how I can live fully in relationship with the Lord and see things happen globally. I also had a general knack for business, so I'm like, I could probably do this in some form or fashion there. And I remember getting pulled into some other tour of Baylor and being there. Maybe it was something with the church group, I don't remember, but I was hanging out in some college students' house at the time that actually later became some of my good friends, and just having this profound encounter of, this is where you're supposed to be. And it was like a lightning bolt, like, you are supposed to come to this school. This is where you're supposed to be. And it wasn't that I started to see things that I wanted to do there or that I liked or programs or anything like that. It was just this profound sense of peace, like, this is where you're going to go. And I'm like, okay, I'll go to Baylor, which was huge because this was a school in Texas that was again like this private Christian university, which I wanted nothing to do with. That's what I was doing in Seattle. And I was kind of I was rebellious during that entire time of my life when I was there. And so to come back to that was, you know, a really, like, it was a 180. And so I signed up and started to do the things that led me down that direction.
Wow. Well, I wonder, do you know how many times you had toured Baylor before that?
I mean, it had to have been
Tip the scale?
close to 10. I mean, not official tours, but like different, like at least 10 different times that I was on that campus for one reason or another.
Well, I love the curveball in plans and trajectory.
You wouldn't take a Ferrari to a quick lube. So why are you managing your estate with a magnet on the fridge? Your home is an asset. Treat it with dignity. Loyal Home Concierge provides white glove stewardship for Austin's most discerning homes. Proactive care, absolute discretion your investment deserves.
What was that experience at Baylor like, and what were maybe some significant shaping moments for you? And then also, what did expressions of community look like during college?
Yeah. So right before I went to Baylor, we had to go do this like prep day or whatever. And one of my friends from high school was coming up there with me. And as we're going to do these different things on campus, they had this deal where you could go and I guess go take like a Spanish test to see how much of Spanish you could place out of. And I had no interest in it. And we go and he convinces me like, oh, let's go take this test. I'm like, I don't even speak Spanish. I didn't even like my teacher. I think I even got her fired in high school. Anyways, we go and do this test and somehow I place out of 3 years of Spanish. And I'm like, I don't understand. This is like crazy, but I was really set on how can I only be at Baylor for 3 years because it's expensive. And so I wanted to graduate early. So I'm like, this is kind of cool. Let's go do it. I go down, figure out what do I have to do to get my credit so I can place out of this, and praise God, I won't have to take language class. So like, well, you do have to take one Spanish class to get all the prior credits. And I remember asking them, I'm like, okay, cool. Do they speak any English in that class? And they're like, no, they don't speak any English. And I'm like, oh man, that's going to be tough. And so as I'm coming back home, I'm thinking about, I got to sign up for a Spanish class, but you're required to take language. I'm like, but this is going to save me tons and tons of money. And I was like, just distressed with the Lord. I'm like, but they don't speak any English. Like, how am I going to do this? Give me confidence for this. Like, should I just sign up for a lower level class, like maybe a level 1 or a level 2 and get some of the credits? And I remember the Lord just coming directly back to me. He's like, no. I'm like, oh, don't. So like, you go for the big one. He's like, I want you to sign up for Chinese. Like, what? Chinese? Like, no way. And I bring that, like, I know this isn't a direct answer to your question, but it's an important one because it really set this trajectory that was crazy for me in college. And so instead of going down the Spanish route, I get on campus, start doing all these things. I sign up for Chinese class and I'm there doing this Chinese class thing. And a few months in, the Lord's like, hey, I want you to go to China. And I'm broke. My dad's about to lose his job. This is not quite 2008 yet. But it's, it's 2006 or whatever. And we're headed towards that environment. And I'm like, I don't have any money for that. I've never been that far overseas. No one's going to go with me. I don't have any contacts there. I've got a long list of things. And I remember just having this response back being like, if you want me to go, I'll go. Or if you want me to go, send me. Make it essentially force my hand, make it, obvious. A couple more months go by. My dad gives me a call. He's like, hey, you're doing this Chinese class and stuff. And I don't know why this happened, but somebody entered me in a drawing at work and I won the drawing. And the prize was a round trip ticket to China. And I have no desire to go. But because you're in this Chinese class, I figured you might want to go. Do you want to go? I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
All right, ready.
And so that led towards me taking this trip and miracle after miracle after miracle that occurred. I mean, I could spend an hour just talking about this trip, but it led me on this incredible journey of seeing the world in a way that I had never understood, putting this fire inside of me that really led towards what you were asking about, like what a community look like. And so when I first got to college, my community was all centered around sports. It was like, who's good golf, who's good at basketball. Then it was like, who's good at, it wasn't pickleball, wall ball. It was this thing that we played. And then I got really into ping pong, like probably one of the top ping pong players in college during my freshman year. I don't think I ever attended class. I just basically lived in the gym doing random sports, but predominantly ping pong. And then, I go on this trip to Guatemala and then to China, and I had this, just crazy things that happened there. And I came back almost as a silent person for a period of time. Like I remember feeling like for the first time, it was kind of like that feeling I had when I was stripped from one move to another, like from Chicago to Seattle or Seattle to Austin. I was kind of like this person in a foreign place. And I felt that way when I got back from China. Like I felt like, although I hadn't moved, I'm still here on Baylor's campus. I'm now a sophomore in college. I've got all the same friend groups, signed up for different classes, but I've got, different people that I'm hanging out with. But I felt like a complete foreigner. Like I literally felt like no one understands me. No one's been what I've been through. No one's seen what I've seen. I lost all of my language for commonality with people for a period of time. And I remember I was a part of this church community that I didn't even want to be at. I kind of got trapped into it in some form or fashion at the tail end of my freshman year. Essentially went to this group as kind of backup for another friend. I'm like, those people that are crazy, but I'll go with you as backup. And at the end of the group, we kind of did this whole divide, multiply thing. And at the end, the leaders were like, we don't have a place to stay, meet next year. What are we going to do? And I was like, well, you guys can use my apartment, I guess. And so I'm a part of this group that I didn't even want to be at because I offered up my apartment. And I remember I was just silent the entire time. Silent. We started meeting, I guess, August, and there was a mission trip happening with that church community down to Juarez, Mexico in March. I didn't say a word in that group from August up until that mission trip to Juarez. They're meeting at my house. I don't know that maybe I said hi when people came in, but I would literally sit there silent if called upon. I don't think I would respond. I was like, you guys have no idea what I've been through. You can't understand. And I go on this trip to Juarez. There's a 12-hour drive out to Mexico or, through El Paso to Juarez. And there's this guy sitting next to me, Elijah, and he's trying to talk to me the whole way. And I'm like, I'm not going to talk to you. I don't want to be on this trip. I don't want to be sitting next to you. No one else understands me here. I have no ambition for community, relationships, or anything. I'm a lost, confused individual. And you might ask, well, why did you go? I was like, I felt like the Lord said, you have to go on this trip. And I'm like, fine, I'll go. And I'm just going to be miserable the whole way. And that trip led towards just unreal surrender and breakthrough for me. And really what led to lifelong friendships that came out of that. So I would probably have today still 60 friendships from that trip. A lot of my friends there are all married to one another and whatnot. And so, but it was this place of I'm putting myself in a place where I feel like the Lord has me, where I'm around other people that have common interests and desires and moving in the right direction. But the sweetness of relationships when you're able to go with people at places that are out of your comfort zone and that you're put through trial, you're put through an uncomfortable situation, it would take what would be, just another, like a friend in town that you see in class or that you're at a colleague at work, and what might take 10 years to develop a relationship, you can literally have that same 10-year relationship happen in a 72-hour window when you're in an intense environment like that trip in Juarez. I started to do so many of these, and I started to see that, and I've carried that through today in my mentality and how I build friendships and relationships and communities and all these different things. And so that really led this trajectory in college of wow, this is incredible. I'm going through personal breakthrough. A lot of other people are going through personal breakthrough. We are all best friends because this crazy thing is happening with us. Bring that fire back. And when I say fire, I mean that idea of let's not be superficial. Let's be totally real, totally all in, totally putting our place into a place of discomfort on a consistent cadence. And that's how I really built friendships through my sophomore, junior, senior, and kind of hung out in college in Waco for several years after that, where I would always have friendships still around random things like volleyball and whatnot. But a lot of my favorite things to do with people was, let's just go share the gospel to random people on campus or in town, or let's just go up to Dallas for a weekend, or let's just go on a camping trip and have nothing planned, bring nothing with us and just see what happens. And we'll sleep on a rail yard if we have to. Let's book a trip to somewhere overseas and maybe go with the big church group, but let's stay later and like, let's throw our passports away. I mean, just create these incredible places of discomfort that led towards incredible relationships. In fact, there's this YouTube group called Yes Theory that I don't know if you've heard of, but I watch them, and they actually have a shirt. What is it called? Discomfort? Oh, now I can't think of it. But anyways, they started doing like all the things that I was doing literally in my college, where they had this profound belief that when you put your place in a place of discomfort with others, you'll generally find that human nature is good and that people desire relationship. And when they're discomfort together, the relationship will strengthen beyond what is generally norm when you're living in a comfortable environment. So, well, I don't know if that was the direction you're going with the question, but
no, that's powerful. And I think I've heard that said in different words of encouragement of do hard things together, and that forms a really powerful bond. And so I think something you see a lot in Austin is people are like, let's go do an adventure race, or let's do this crazy fitness challenge, and they do something hard together and powerful friendships are forged.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to go back to something that you did that very few people, particularly in America, ever do, is you said yes to something that you didn't want to do.
Yeah.
That you're reluctant to. Like, how did that come about? There were several yeses, like going to that church group you didn't want to, hosting the group at your apartment, going on the trip to Juarez, and maybe more there. Like, how are you saying yes when your spirit was maybe saying, oh, I don't want to do this? Like,
yeah, I don't know. I would probably give different answers throughout my place in life. I would want to say, I just really hear the Lord and I'm such a perfect and zealous individual and obedient servant. I don't think it's that. I don't think it was that. I think I could go back before that, and that I would naturally say yes to the thing that I felt deeply was the right direction, even though it was maybe anti the norm. And I think part of that's my wiring. I'm probably more of, the type of person that wants to say yes to the things everybody would always say no to. Like you tell me I can't do something like that, just clear my calendar. That's all I'm working on. Yeah, for sure. Contrarian in that degree. So I think I have a natural propensity to say yes to the extreme no. And maybe that's a thing that I'm just generally drawn to. But yeah, I mean, after throughout college and literally that trip to China that then became these things where I literally just saw miracle after miracle after miracle. I mean, that entire trip was me saying yes to something like instance after instance that was irrational, crazy, discomfort. I mean, at a minimum standard, and then just seeing profound payoff and reward and relationships and things that I would have never experienced had I not said yes. And the yes wasn't like, hey, go do this thing you're good at, but you're not up for it. Like, it wasn't that at all. It was like, hey, David, go, I want you to share your story and the gospel on a stage in front of hundreds of people, and you've never spoken on stage before as a 19-year-old. I'm like, yeah, like, no thanks. I don't even know what that looks like. And you're going to do it right now. No prep. No. And I remember that one specifically was the one interaction in my life. I remember literally, somebody came and asked me this, where I was literally responding with no. And the only thing that came out of my mouth was yes. And my brain fired the codes to my mouth that said, you're saying no. And what came out was yes. And I'm like, well, your yes be yes and your no be no. I've said yes, so I'll commit. And I remember at that moment, like, out of body experience, I'm there technically in control, but I'm doing nothing. And there was just so many of those where then I was willingly saying yes because I'm like, well, I can't even say no. Apparently, if I try to say no, I still say yes. So I just said yes to so many of those on that trip that became just a huge norm for me, where I'm like, I'm just going to lean on the side of yes when it just seems crazy. And I wasn't right a lot. Like, I've said things to plenty of people that then, got me in trouble, or they slapped me in the face. They're like, you're off base. Like, that makes no sense. But I would rather take the risk to see the reward than never take the risk and guarantee I will never see any form of reward. And I don't mean financial reward. I just mean like reward through different things, like being able to encounter a piece of joy that I would never seen, or a relationship that I would never had, or see healing that would never occurred, or see a financial reward, things like that. But yeah, that became normal. And I think the biggest one that has really shaped the trajectory of my life was that when I went to graduate, I had no desire to get married, fell in love with my wife anyways, was mad with the Lord about it. I'm like, why'd you make me fall in love? I just wanted to be in love with you and just die overseas as a missionary and never go do anything. And he's like, yeah, well, that's good. Like, you're going to get married to her. I'm like, okay, well, I want to, but I don't want to. It's like this weird thing. But anyways, I bring that up to say, we get married. She wants to go do her master's in social work, which is a master's to never make money. And it's Baylor, so it's really expensive. And so I got this finance degree that I never planned on using. And now I've got to go figure out how to generate money with to be able to pay for her graduate school, as well as just our life and whatnot. And I get all these different different opportunities, and like over and over and over again, the Lord's like, no to that one, no to that one. I'm like, but that one's going to make me a lot of money. It's going to make me like $60,000 at the time, it felt like a windfall.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah. And it was like, no. And then it was, how about this job with New York Life? I'm like, I don't even need to ask you about that one. That's an obvious no. Why would I go do something that doesn't require a college degree that my dad will hate me for, that would have wasted everything that I did in college to go even pursue this for a second day? And the Lord's like, no, you're going to say yes to this one. This is the right thing to go do. And little did I know at the time that would literally shape the next 15 years of my life, and the relationships that I have and the places that I'm in, and the fact that I'm back in Austin and all this other stuff.
Okay, the stonemason sent a PDF. The plumber wants a check. Wait, who is Dave on Venmo? Is that the woodworker or the tool rental? Oh my gosh. Stop playing forensic accountant with your own renovation. With Loyal, you get one consolidated invoice. We manage the vendors and the paperwork. One bill, zero confusion. Loyal Home Concierge.
Man, well, now I'm eager to know, like, what happened after that yes, that another reluctant yes. Like, what was that New York Life experience like?
Yeah, I mean, the reasons I wanted to say no all came true, at least initially. It wasn't a job that I needed to take with my college education. It, on surface level, for sure felt like that was a waste. My dad was for sure frustrated with that decision. And I didn't even know how bad the yes was until I showed up like in the first few weeks and started getting trained on things. And I'm like, hold on a minute. I just got a degree in finance. Now I'm being taught all of these things that have nothing to do with anything I studied for the last 4 years. Like, then I was the first time I understood that personal finance and corporate finance were totally two different things, not even remotely the same. And so now I'm in this world of personal finance, if you can even call it that. It's really just sales. And I'm being taught sales, and I had never learned sales. And so now I'm being taught sales. Now I'm being taught about the concept of financial products, which I didn't understand. And anyways, the reason why this yes, that should have been, or I would have felt compelled to say no, was a trajectory change, is that it led me down this journey that I would have never otherwise said yes to, that opened up my perspective to a societal need that I didn't know was there. So I was so focused on the hearts and souls, minds of really the world, focused on people in Africa that had, nothing, focused on those children in Ukraine that I spent time with, focused on the slums in India of just absolute depraved poverty and illness and disabilities. And I'm like, that's all I care about. And then I get to this place of now going to talk about money with others, of which I had extraordinary fear of at the time, up until that, 16-year-old transformation thing that happened in Canada. I had an extreme love for money, love for power. When people would ask me, do you want to be president? I'd be like, no way. That's not powerful enough. I think Alexander the Great would be a better title. Genghis Khan. Like, that's who I would have more say were my mentors and heroes. And then I flipped to this like Mother Teresa mindset of money's evil. I want nothing to do with it. How can I stay as far away as possible? And now I'm literally in a career that's all about wealth and money. And it made no sense to me. And I saw not just this conversation with how much money, like when I would have these conversations with people, it didn't really ever seem to bother me that much, but I would talk with others and it was like the thing that was holding them back from life. Money. It was the money. It was the thing that was destroying marriages. It was the thing that was like consuming their thoughts, like the propensity of their anxiety, the inability to take risks and dreams and do different things. It was always around money. And so I saw that perspective while also seeing the system that was there to try to solve those problems just being terrible. Like the misalignments and all this other stuff, it was horrible. And so for 2 or 3 years, I'm in the place of learning what personal finance is, learning how much money has a grip on society at a personal level, at a city level, at a government level, at a corporate level, and seeing that the system that, when you're younger, you kind of look at these big companies like, oh, they're perfect. They're not run off of Excel. And then you get older and you're like, oh, there are people there too. And they're run off of Excel and stuff doesn't work half the time. And just because they got a big brand doesn't mean anything. But now I'm like, wow, this is a totally different need. And I'm seeing now that literally I've got a gift to see money in a very interesting way, not to like just go get a bunch of returns, but help people understand it at a better level. That I'm like, once you can get a piece around money, man, so many other things get unlocked. And so I just didn't understand that. And that time at New York Life was very, very small because I became so aware of the brokenness. So I'm like, okay, well, this system needs to be completely reset. So another all-in method. And this wasn't like a say yes to something I wanted to otherwise say no for. Now, for the first time outside of that passion to go be a missionary, I had a passion of, I'm so frustrated with how this system is set up that if I'm not going to get to go be a missionary right now, because that door seems to keep getting closed on me, then Lord have mercy, I'm going to reset this whole system. And we're going to flip this on this head, and these product sales things and this thing that's against society and not moving the needle in a profound way, we're going to change it. And that kind of led towards what I've been doing for the last 10 years.
And tell us what that is. And it's interesting for me to kind of step back and see the formation of where you're at now and what you built, because I see the formation of your character, your calling, your personal why, all this adversity and these crazy situations that you willingly put yourself in that shape you, and then the identification of need that you just talked about, and all these things around money. What did this vision kind of compile to?
Yeah, so when this is kicking off, I'm still in Waco. I actually stayed in Waco for another 6 years after graduating. And so I'm a part of New York Life. I'm living there up until, I guess we didn't move out until 2016 or so. And during that period of time, I'm building this business in Austin, yet I'm living in Waco. I'm coming down to Austin all the time for different groups. Like, it was this golf group for a period of time. I drive down every single week. Then I was driving down for the team that I was beginning to build because our office was down here in Austin. And so eventually this pull back to Austin became really something that we couldn't walk away from. And my wife and I had no desire to ever live in Austin again. None. We loved Waco. We wanted to stay. We're like, if we ever have to live in the U.S., which we didn't want to live in the U.S. either, we'd rather be overseas, then Waco is going to be the place. And then it just became like, Waco is not the place. You need to move. Like, you've got your family down here, you got your business down here. And we were like, no, we're going to, stay. And then it was like the Lord sent the plagues after us. I remember literally cockroaches flooded our house. Our friends all started to move. And I literally felt like Pharaoh, where the Lord was just like, I'm going to make you not like you're going to start to hate Waco if you stay here. And I was like, all right, fine. We'll go to Austin. So we come down to Austin, business begins to thrive. And we invest in these different, way, I suppose, of approaching it. But we leave New York life, we go into independent wealth management, and then launch a consulting company, because neither of those two systems that existed seemed to be moving the needle. Also moved away from kitchen table talk with husband and wives to working with a lot of entrepreneurs. It was just not because entrepreneurs are any better. For me, it was because I think that I just connected better with other leaders in society that could make quick decision makers, not have to, stew on things for a long time, and you could see meaningful impacts. But the thing is that if I thought that the system already didn't serve the general person well, it does not serve the entrepreneur nearly at all. The entrepreneur, sure, can a product help them? Maybe. On the list of priorities, it is so far down the list. Can, investing their wealth help them? Sure. But, everyone talks about go get 10% in the market or whatever. An entrepreneur can go make 100,000, 10,000% return. Like, they don't care about 8 to 10%, especially as they're, building their companies. They care about, different things. I remember the first time I actually finally got in the room with an entrepreneur after doing these cold calls for like door knocking for like a week in the Texas sun in a suit and tie. Just it's absolutely absurdity. And I remember getting pulled in the back room. He's like, all right, let me tell you about what I've got going on and see how you can help me. And I'm like, all right, this is the deal. We're going to make this happen. And he goes through this entire thing about how he's got so much theft on his custom home building properties. And he's trying to solve combination of what cameras they should have put in place, how many, how they should finance them, when they should get them implemented, when the appropriate, cash flow, when does it fit into their cash flow and their seasonality and all this stuff. And I remember being like, wow, I have no training on this. I can solve this problem. I have no way to get paid to solve this problem. And I left that meeting, not getting that as a client because I probably look like a fool, and thinking there's a better way to go solve the real needs. I had this idea of how money's gripping people. This is another one. Like, why should a money issue be holding back this custom home builder from doing what he's doing? And it all has to do around he's so gripped with the fear of how money can be used to buy a camera so that he can literally just make progress. I'm like, all right, we're going to start a consulting company and we're just going to go work with entrepreneurs, solve the primary financial problems that they had. And so we launched that primarily so that we could have a way of getting paid to do real work versus, hey, I'll do free stuff and then I'll sell you something later. It just felt slimy and wrong, and that's how most of the world works. Well, that led towards this much bigger journey of realizing that, one, there's all these needs that most of the world isn't solving. But more than that, the issue isn't just on the financial advisory side, it's the entire professional advisory side. It's the CPAs, the attorneys, the bankers, the financial advisors. You've got generally a lack of education, and there's good ones out there, but they're all siloed. They're all separate. They don't work together. They don't know each other's world. If you go to a financial advisor and ask them to read a tax return, they can't. CPA can read a tax return well. If you ask them about future value or present value calculations, they can't figure it out. If you ask either of those two people to read a legal document, they say you have to hire an attorney. If you ask the attorney to do 2 + 2, they say the answer is 9. And so it's just like, wow, this is a convoluted mess. How are people supposed to do this? And then as I'm getting into these conversations with people, it is really, really gripping. And so we would solve these problems, then I would see them blow up again, either because other advisors wouldn't handle them well, or the client would self-sabotage and it would blow up again. And after doing this for years and saving people tons of money, I mean, we got really good at tax mitigation and all kinds of other complex cash flow things and whatnot. We would do incredible work for people. But I remember years would go by and there wouldn't be a heart transformation. There wouldn't be a level of deep peace. There wouldn't be a needle moved. Like, that wouldn't honestly even be zeros added to the net worth statement. It would seem like, all right, we've increased more availability of cash into the person's life that brought them a dopamine hit of a high. And then the dollars just somehow evaporated into other new things, and marriages weren't getting better, and businesses weren't thriving, and they weren't engaging society. They weren't becoming philanthropic. Like, there just wasn't this transformation happening. And part of that had to do with my business partner and I, and the culture and our misalignment, and that whole thing that exploded. And we had our own internal issues. But the other part of it was the focus for us became so focused on money, and it wasn't focused on this bigger piece that really kind of birthed post buying out my business partner, but these 3 P's of protection, peace, and purpose. And really going back to, hey, David, you remember those years where you were on fire for a purpose? You remember those years where life wasn't fully organized, it wasn't fully put together, but you had a place of profound peace that allowed you to have this ability to look at something and take incredible risk? I'm like, yeah, you need to stay there. And it wasn't saying, hey, walk away from the company, although I thought that was the answer. I really would have thought, like in 2020, when my partnership was a dumpster fire and the world was coming to an end with the pandemic, and, we had to breathe through masks and whatnot. I was like, I'm pretty confident the answer is sell all of this and go be a missionary again, even though I felt like the answer was no. And it wasn't that. It was, no, I've gifted you really well. Not just gifted you, but your team that is growing and whatnot at doing really good work. You just need to do it for a different reason. And it was like, wait a minute. So do the same thing for a different reason creates a different outcome? 100%. And so do we do the same thing? Yeah. Same consulting engagements, same thing that we're going to do, with a mindset of, this is going to allow peace to occur. Peace is going to allow purpose to be had. A purpose, sometimes people will find their calling within it. And when everything became from that angle, all of a sudden, you and I might be having a conversation about money, but we're picking up the small other things like, oh, it's not, if I just do this isn't going to change it, because there's a mindset thing here, because there's an issue that you haven't resolved with your spouse or with your parents or with your children. Oh, we're going to get to this, but if we don't really think about the greater why, then there's never going to be a movement towards this. And so everything became about, how can we get people to really focus on purpose? And there's this progression of, that's impossible unless you're at a place of peace. Peace can't happen unless you get rid of chaos. So how can we reduce chaos, put these systems and things in place? But as soon as that's done, not just say, all right, our work is complete here. It's like, no. Now let's create relationship. In fact, we'll talk about with peace, when you're talking about community, we literally say, most people think in this world of advisory, professional advisory, whatnot, all the work is around tax planning, financial planning, cash flow planning, organization, strong group of advisors, all this stuff. And all that needs to be done. It's good work. And if you do so, you'll get peace. I don't agree. That allows the chaos to come down, the storm. It does not create peace. It just allows you, it's kind of like if you've got a tumor in your head and you take Vicodin, do you not feel the tumor anymore? Sure. Is the tumor gone? No. Is it going to come back and hurt? Yeah. As soon as that Vicodin wears off, it's coming back. So giving the Vicodin isn't the answer. There's actually work that needs to be done. Well, the work that needs to be done to actually see peace that we found is understanding what you've done, understanding the strong work of things. A lot of people will hire it away and have no understanding of what it is. And if you don't have understanding, you'll recreate the mess, or you'll hire the wrong people to not maintain it. Understand it. Alignment with your spouse, with your kids, with your business partners, etc. Meaning they also have to understand it so that you have common language to know whether or not you both agree or in alignment with what you're done, what you're doing. And then the most central part that you've been asking me a lot of questions around, community that fosters accountability. If you are the only person that understands, or you and your spouse are the only person that understands you in alignment, you will still get lost if you do not have that third piece of the triangle, which is a community of others that have been there, done that, or doing that as well. So that when you're out in the middle of the sea and you're lost, it's a lot easier to get lost if you're the only ship at sea pointed in whatever direction, and your direction you perceive as north. It's a lot harder to not get pointed in the wrong direction when there's 100 of you. The more there are, the likelihood that you have all drifted in the same direction in the same way is pretty low. the likelihood that somebody's off kilter in the midst of 100 or 1,000 ships pointed in the right direction, that's likely. But what happens when you create that wake? All of the ones that go off kilter naturally get moved in the right direction. Community is the critical part. And so as we built this thing to solve complex problems, what was the bigger engine that we had to create? We literally had to train these entrepreneurs that others perceive as incredible leaders on how to foster alignment with their spouse, how to foster alignment with their business partners, how to foster alignment with their kids, and go out of their comfort zone to find others that were literally thinking, doing the same way, and foster incredible community. Because without it, we would build all this stuff all day long and it would just all get torn apart later.
And well, let me just react to some of the things that you mentioned, which are very unconventional thoughts and principles, I'll say. The use of those 3 P words, protection, peace, purpose. Most people, and let's focus on Americans again, because we're in America, would never attach those words to money. Or those two things would be so far apart. So I think it's really powerful of taking this concept of money that is anxiety-inducing, usually is attached to unknowns for people, fear, a litany of negative words. And you've created these 3 powerful pillars. And then taking this need that you saw around money and what it does in our lives and overlaying community as the source of solution or the path to a better way. I think that's so powerful. So we're going to start to wind down our conversation today. I could talk about, your company and what you've built all day long because it's such an interesting need that you're helping people navigate through. But let me do a quick walkthrough of some powerful kind of lessons in community that I heard from you and your story. So looking back at maybe elementary school, middle school, David, I love the recipe for community of, hey, turn to the person next to you, crack a joke, explore maybe some interest areas or alignment, and then, hey, you might have a friendship out of that. I love just that simple, form of community building. And then fast forwarding to college, you realize, if I get together with a group of people and we dive into something really challenging together, we face adversity together, we go into an unknown, we do hard stuff together, particularly when maybe there's a focus on others, powerful friendships are forged, and a friendship that might take years to build can be catalyzed in, a couple of days. I think that's so powerful. And then fast forward to now in your firm where you're helping folks navigate this intense need, bringing people together in it and centering around people's stories. I think it's wonderful that you're doing that, and I'm glad that you're doing that here in Austin. So leave us with one thing maybe that you're really enjoying about Austin as a city right now, or an expression of community that's been really life-giving for you as we wind down our conversation.
There's a lot that's good in Austin. The food scene's pretty good here. If you haven't been to Kamuri Tatsuya yet, around the corner, it is good. Boulevard is up there as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have a specific community-oriented thing here. If I were going to leave your viewers with one thing, especially those that are here in Austin or for others, it would be something that I literally just had a conversation with some younger guys on my team earlier this year. And it was those that was like, they were literally asking, I feel isolated, I don't know how to get involved. And I said, look, here's what I would encourage anybody to do. Find a local group of people that you can just get connected with. But better yet, go out of your way to be the leader in that. And they're like, I don't know how to be a leader. I'm like, I don't care what it's around. Like, it could be literally as simple as I enjoy coffee, and so I do 10 a.m. coffees on Fridays and invite people to come with me, or it's golf, or it's an activity, or it's a book club, or it's whatever. But try to be the leader of something locally, and then get those local people out of the local area. And the good news about Austin is that you've got the most diverse group of people that I absolutely love. You go to any pocket in town, you've got everything you can imagine, from fitness to health to different cultures to different food scenes. I mean, this is the city where I don't care what your passion is, there are other people that have the same passion, and to be able to rally people behind it is the easiest thing. And most people just simply want to be invited. That's it. I mean, your neighbor that you think doesn't like you, if you just invite them over for dinner, the likelihood that they say yes is very, very high. People want to be invited. You invite one, invite another. Now all of a sudden you got a group and get a community.
I love that. And I like to say that an invitation, like, it's one of the best compliments you can give someone.
Totally.
It's so wonderful to receive, and such a powerful affirmation. Like, oh, I'm wanted here.
That's right.
You want to be with me. You want to hang out.
Yeah. And I appreciate you inviting me on your podcast.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, David. This has been an awesome time. And man, what a fascinating story. And I'm glad that you were generous in sharing it with the group today.
Oh, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Austin Community Capital. This show is a celebration of the spirit of Austin, Texas, honoring our past, engaging our present, and building our future together. If this conversation sparked something in you, a new idea, a feeling of connection, or just a good laugh, pass it on. Share this episode with a fellow Austinite or a loved one who needs to hear it. Let's keep weaving this fabric of community together. This show is proudly presented by Loyal Home Concierge. At Loyal, we believe that a healthy, thriving city starts within the four walls of your home. We are passionate about supporting overextended executives, the moms and dads who do it all, and the couples who take life by storm. Because we know that when your home life is supported, you are free to support the ones who matter most.
Your kids, your wife.
Whether you need a proactive manager for your home or a creative problem solver for your next big adventure, we are here to help you design a life of intention. LoyalHomeConcierge.com. Let's make life a little more beautiful together. Stay loyal to your community, and we'll see you next time.